Welcome back. Let's poke around the real-life Bitcoin blockchain. Because the Bitcoin blockchain is distributed and readable by anyone, there are many sites that allow us to explore it online. One such site is the Blockchain Explorer. This site allows us to browse here on the left the most recently mined blocks. These are the blocks that were just added. And here on the right, we see the transactions that are soon to be added to a new block. These are called unconfirmed transactions. They haven't been fully verified yet. But it's pretty awesome seeing these transactions scroll by in real time. Every once in a while, you'll see some transaction worth millions of dollars. That is, millions of dollars worth of Bitcoins. And you can see exactly where it's being sent to and from. This is pretty cool. So we can click into any of these blocks, any block that was added to the blockchain, or look into one specific transaction. To start, let's dig into one of these most recent blocks, say the third most recent. We can see exactly when this block was mined or added to the blockchain. There's the miner's reward of 6.25 Bitcoins, which were awarded in response to verifying 2,150 transactions, all on this single block. Let's scroll a little further, where we can see the hash that's used to find this block on the blockchain. Check it out. Just like we discussed, we can see that a block is about 1.5 megabytes in size for Bitcoin right now, and that in total, there were over 50,000 Bitcoins sent to and from different accounts as part of the transactions logged in this block. The transactions that we can see by scrolling further down. The first transaction in a block is known as the Coinbase. It contains the newly generated coins that are given to the miner, the block creator, as a reward for their work. We see the amount here is slightly more than the 6.25 we discussed earlier. Why is that? Well, if we scroll up, we can see that there is an additional 0.11 Bitcoin worth of fees paid by everyone who did a transaction on this block. And we can see that the Coinbase transaction was sent to this ID here. This ID corresponds to the address of the miner. Specifically, it corresponds to an address that points to what we call the miner's wallet, where a wallet is where these Bitcoins can be stored. Blockchain transactions always involve the wallet address of the sender and the wallet address of the receiver. That's all we know. Notice that here with Bitcoin, even though we have the addresses of everyone who's both sending and receiving Bitcoin, we don't have their names or any personally identifying information, but instead, we have just these anonymized addresses, these strings of letters and numbers. We can click on this address to see what information we get, but all we learn about this address is what's already on the blockchain, which means we can see any and all transactions that were sent involving this address, and we can see the amount of Bitcoins that were both received and sent. To get the current amount available at this address, we can subtract the sent from the received, and we get that final balance. Both wallets and addresses are really important concepts when it comes to blockchain. So we'll spend our time both in this video and a future video really understanding them. Now, before we move forward, let's take a fun little break. How do we split a Bitcoin? So far, we've been seeing Bitcoin amounts that look something like this. We have a whole number followed by 8 decimal places. Because Bitcoins have increased in value so quickly since they were created, there's a need to divide a Bitcoin into smaller units. The smallest, with all zeros and a 1 in this last decimal place, is 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. This is known as 1 Satoshi, after Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin. In other words, we have 1 Bitcoin being equal to 100 billion Satoshis. When talking about smaller amounts of Bitcoin, it's often easier to talk about Satoshis as opposed to these very tiny fractions of a Bitcoin. There you have it. Bitcoins are divided into Satoshis. And now, back to Blockchain Explorer. Now, there's something strange that you might have noticed. If we go back to our list of transactions, let's see what other information we can find. For our Coinbase transaction, that first one on the block, we have a transaction hash, just like we had hashes for our blocks. We have the address of the wallet that this amount of Bitcoin here was sent to. We have a timestamp, and we have this op return, which just means that the Bitcoins are going both to and from this wallet here. But let's take a look at the second transaction on the block. We now have a fee here that was paid by the sender in order to use the Bitcoin network. This fee is sent to the miner here as a reward, again included in that 6.36 Bitcoin. But now we have a valid sender's address, and actually we have 2 addresses that are receiving this currency. What this means is that the 1.7 Bitcoin that lives in this address is being split between this first address and the second. Notice that this second address is exactly the same as the sender, because all of the Bitcoin in the address needs to be accounted for. So we have part of the total being sent to a new address and part of it being returned back to the sender. We now know that with Bitcoin, transactions can have multiple recipients, but also multiple senders, believe it or not, which would mean that the Bitcoin is being pooled together from multiple wallet addresses. Let's find an example. I've gone ahead and found a transaction not on this first page, but on the 4th page of this block, where we've sent 3 Bitcoins pooled together from 2 different addresses and being sent or being split between these 3 recipients. What a transaction! This is happening all in one go. 5 addresses are involved in a single transaction. What's up with that? Now that we've had a taste for how the Bitcoin blockchain looks in real life, we'll explore why addresses and transactions are so important to the blockchain in the next couple of videos. I can't wait, so I'll see you there.